Welcome into another Couch Potato General Manager video. Topic of discussion, Xavier Legette, receiver out of South Carolina. Size, speed, dynamo, huge senior season. Not a whole lot of production prior to this season. And, as we were studying him, that speed, that acceleration, it really reminded me of Terrell Owens. And one of our viewers actually commented on a short we did on Xavier Legette, and he indicated that his play style, Legette's play style, is actually more akin to A.J. Brown, but his physical traits are very close to DK Metcalf. And it got me to thinking. And I thought it was a really great point, really great observation that he does appear to be a blend of those players in terms of play style and physical traits, stature. Interestingly enough, A.J. Brown was a huge fan of Julio Jones. That's who he patterned his game after. And then ultimately, when Julio Jones and A.J. Green were coming out, a lot of us actually comped those two to Terrell Owens and Randy Moss, respectively. So by the transitive property, Xavier Legette is very much like Terrell Owens in terms of acceleration. What I do want to share with you guys is a video we did about a month and a half ago where we were really making the case for about 4 different receivers for receiver 2. For me, there's a clear delineation in terms of the top 3, right? I go Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. Xavier Legette has been in my top 5, and he tentatively remains there. He's a very, very intriguing prospect. But I want to take us back to that video where CPGM Headley and CPGM Juice joined me, and we discussed his skill set.
It was against North Carolina. I was like, number 17, South Carolina. I'm not sure as well.
Is that Alshon?
Juice was my guy. I'm like, is that Alshon reincarnated? Who is this guy? And 6'3", 227, great body control. Those 50-50 balls, he made that easy. But what was more impressive with the 6'3", 227 frame was when he ran 22 miles per hour after that. Yeah. So he's big and fast. Mingo was a guy like that last season where you're talking about Drew, that's Debo with the ball in his hands, because his ability to break tackles, be very creative, get to top speed really quickly. And I think that's one of the most impressive things about Xavier Legette is how quick he gets to top speed. Like he'll catch a ball over his head and just accelerate. He just keeps going and gets there really, really fast. Like I say, he can stack DBs, body control, high point ability. He got suddenness in his game. He has all the traits. You see him make an acrobatic catch pretty much every week. At 6'3", 227, I think he's going to run a 4.4. You can't teach that. You talk about Keon Coleman. You can't teach those traits. You can't teach that, man. That's big time.
Yeah, I think Headley made great points there, right? There's certain elements of Xavier Legette's game that you simply can't teach, and where he is a little bit more raw in terms of his route running. I actually think he's a pretty good route runner, all things considered, but he may be a little bit more raw from that perspective. What he offers in terms of what you cannot teach really stands out. It's really special, and particularly with the ball in his hands. Not only does he have great linear speed, but he can make guys miss. He's loose in the hips. He can break tackles. So, with more and more passes at the line of scrimmage or just beyond the line of scrimmage, guys who can catch it and make a play are really coveted. And when you're that big, that fast, you're really difficult to bring down.
Yeah, man. It's another weapon. I hate reusing words, but I can't help it, right? Just get the ball in his hands and let him work, man. And he's going to do it with violence. And it doesn't really matter where he's catching the football. He is a guy who will go up and get it, like Headley said, in terms of contorting his body. The only issue that I have right now, 2 things. One, I want him to be a better route runner, but he's in a system where I don't necessarily think we're going to see that. So that may hold him back. And then the other thing is he got to stay healthy, man. It's also a part of his game, though. It's how he plays. And so you may have to accept that, right? So we know Debo get hurt every year, right? So right around that time, it's time to get hurt. It's time to be out for a couple of games, right? And so that may be a thing with Legette. It may hold him back in terms of his draft status because of his style. If you play that way and you don't get hurt, it's one thing. But if you play that way and get hurt, it's a whole nother thing. So I like Legette. I just need him to stay healthy, man. Just stay healthy.
Every time I watch him, I'm impressed. I'm impressed from the physical stature and the speed at which he plays. 22 miles per hour at that size, at almost 230 pounds. I think of all these receivers, he's probably in the least advantageous situation as it relates to coaching and system and even quarterback play. I think Spencer Rattler is a talented player, but he's not Penix. He certainly isn't Penix outside of MHJ, and we're not talking about him. Jaden Daniels obviously playing at a very high level as well, and I had Lee's guy in Jordan Travis
Jordan
in
Travis.
FSU. I think I had to let my mind catch up a little bit. I think all three of those quarterbacks are obviously playing at a higher level than Spencer Rattler. That impacts the receiver. I also think that when you consider offensive lines, what South Carolina is rolling out there isn't very good either. That's a problem as well. So I think when you see 38 grabs at 736 yards, you see that's just that average is just dripping big play. It's just oozing big play waiting to happen, whether he catches it short or he catches it deep. He stacks the defensive back. You know, he could hit his head on the goalpost. So that type of explosiveness obviously goes a long way. And redshirt senior, it's taken a while for him to get to this point and really be able to demonstrate what he's capable of. But this very well could have been more of a coaching situation and just how you're deploying him, right? Coaches.
It was really a development challenge, right? He played quarterback as a senior in high school, you know, and he was known for what he did with his legs. You know, it wasn't a whole lot of passing. He was just excellent with the ball in his hand. So recruited as an athlete, so you're trying to find a home for him, and obviously receiver was the best spot for him. It just took time. It took time for him to develop, make the best of his opportunities. He had an injury earlier in his career that may have, you know, kind of mitigated or actually dampened his ability to get up to speed more quickly. But certainly it all came together this season.
You know, get comfortable with certain players. Quarterbacks get comfortable with certain players, and you kind of force feed them. With Jaheim Bell transferring out, you talked about it, Headley. Juice Wells was the guy we're expecting to continue to flourish, right? And here comes Legette with an opportunity, and he's made the most of it. And I can appreciate that. And I'm sure scouts are going to appreciate that. He's producing big time, right? And under different circumstances, I think he would be producing even more. So when you talk about those traits that NFL teams covet, that there's going to be a hive. It may not be a huge hive, but there is going to be a hive for him. I really like what Legette's doing. As you mentioned, Drew, want to see him get healthy, want to see him finish this season strong.
And that he did. He actually finished his last 4 games with 30 grabs, 499 yards, and 4 TDs. He was a huge difference maker, actually coming back from an injury. So you could see that those numbers were from prior to the end of the season. Again, he gets healthy and comes back and puts on a show, really punctuates his final year at South Carolina. He's been invited to the Senior Bowl. And we mentioned that, we talked about that, wanted to see him. Gamecocks, they're not bowl eligible. So getting an opportunity to see him down in Mobile is going to be big. I think he could help himself quite a bit. And as I mentioned, that size speed combination is always going to be coveted. Jim Nagy, you know, the czar of the Senior Bowl, has indicated that even though things have changed a bit in terms of how offenses operate, it's typically the passing game is inside out. It's still very much a genetics game. And we're talking about a 6'3" guy who entered college around 190. He's close to 230 now, and he's still a blur. 22.3 miles per hour. That's actually faster than one of those favorable comps in terms of DK Metcalf, who just managed 22.23 miles per hour this past week in the NFL. So really great company to have from that perspective. And like I said, I think NFL teams, there are going to be a number of NFL teams that are going to be willing to roll the dice on him within those first 40 picks, maybe even the bottom of the first round. I think we've mocked him to the Ravens quite a bit, sitting in the 28 hole, anywhere from 28 to 32. I would feel comfortable, or I would be willing to roll the dice, because of course you're going to a good football team. You probably have a quality quarterback in place. You know, you put him in a position to be successful, and I think he can certainly help you. I think immediately he helps in your return game. And again, as I mentioned, he's really effective with the ball in his hands. There's always going to be a certain level of volatility with these size speed guys. You know, they're typically just better athletes than the competition that they face at the collegiate level. You have to become more polished. You have to be more nuanced in your ability as far as getting in and out of your breaks, your release package, so on and so forth. But I think Legette, assuming he gets quality coaching, he has a chance to be one of those outliers, not unlike DK Metcalf. And like I said, with the ball in his hands, he looks more like A.J. Brown. And I actually give A.J. Brown the nod in terms of being able to evade defenders and make plays after the catch. Metcalf clearly has the linear speed, and of course, Legette appears to have that linear speed as well. But when you put those two together, you have quite the weapon. So looking forward to what Legette does throughout the remainder of the pre-draft process. All right, let me know what you think of this video. Comment down below, like, and subscribe.